Well, what about Joe Rogan? I mean, you're in a feud with him now, right?
Oh man, like this week it felt like I actually was in a feud with Joe Rogan. Like
It was
certainly some of the
awesome.
comments I was getting from like Joe Rogan fans, like they were like I picked a fight with Joe Rogan.
But you
So
didn't actually comment anything. You just retweeted the tweet, right? You
yeah,
didn't
so
actually say anything.
yeah, so for people that don't know what the story was, like there was an ad made by Paper Moose, who are the agency, like on Gruen for the first episode. We set them the challenge to convince the people who can't be convinced when it comes to vaccines. And so they made this fictional ad about a guy, Jazz Tremlow, who people might know, the comedian, and very funny performance by him. And he is dying of some sort of allergic attack in a cafe. And somebody goes to give him an EpiPen and he starts asking the series of questions that anti-vaxxers might ask about, like the vaccines. You know, what brand is it? Where were they made? What were the blind trials? Blah, blah, blah. And then the final sort of punchline as he's like gasping for his final breath is like, what did Joe Rogan say? Someone called Joe. And Joe Rogan posted that on his. In fact, this is. Did you read what he actually said when he posted it?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it
Australia's
is.
mishandled the pandemic and this is propaganda and blah, blah, blah.
I will read it out because it is just so amazing. Okay, so firstly, there's 22,000 comments. I have not read any of them because I feel like that would not be a good place for me to spend my time.
Yeah.
But this was what he posted. Not only has Australia had the worst reaction to the pandemic. Now, Charlie, let's just fact check this on the way through. Do you believe that Australia has had the worst reaction to the pandemic?
No, I don't believe so. And think in terms of like numbers of hospitalization and deaths per capita, we're actually done all right.
Yeah, one of the best, in fact, I would have said. With dystopian police state measures. Okay, some of
Someone
the.
follows Avi Yemeni on
Yeah,
Instagram, I'm feeling like.
right.
Rebel
Like
News is in the
that
feed.
are truly inconceivable to the rest of the civilized world. No, they're
No, I
not.
don't
Pretty
think so.
standard stuff, to be honest. But they have also have the dumbest propaganda. And then he posts this
That's
fictional ad.
that sentence there is chef's kiss. The dumbest propaganda, like the levels of irony in that, it would make Alanis Morissette blush.
Mate, the work that he has done here, like for a guy who is all about do your own research, and this ad is playing on the idea that Joe Rogan is the do your own research guy, to not do his own research, to not check that it was a real ad, to post it. And so this is the best bit. Edit 2 hours later. Apparently this is not a real ad. It's from a satirical show. Now, this week I had to talk to a lot of people about that. Like a lot of people wanted to talk about it on the radio and stuff like that when I was doing Gruen promotion. And like I wasn't out in any way to start a beef with Joe Rogan. Like I didn't do this. Like we made an ad and like then Joe Rogan did not check to see if it was a real ad. And this is a guy who is constantly like spreading a whole bunch of opinions about like what Australia is going through that are just absolutely not true, and around vaccines that are absolutely not true and really fucking dangerous in some cases. And then suddenly I was in trouble with his fans
Yeah.
because they, it turns out, for people who purport to be fans of comedians, cannot take a joke.
A little sensitive? A little sensitive.
Oh my fucking God.
Yeah, it was funny. I did see though, in when, on one of the there was a comment under one of the tweets, and I love this. Like, no matter what side of the argument you fall upon, when you were discussing a very famous person or someone who has done something stupid or tweeted something stupid, there's always someone in the comments who's like, "Who?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, come on, dude. Even if you hate Joe Rogan, you can't argue that he is not incredibly well known, like the most popular podcast in the world. So dismissing that with a who is like, come on, you're being
Yeah,
silly now.
200 million downloads a week. Like his Instagram has nearly 14 million followers. So he posted that to half of the Australian population.
Great promo for Gruen.
Great promo for Gruen, but not a great promo for Joe Rogan as a trusted source of information, I would suggest.
Who would have thunk it? The guy who thinks the moon landings were faked. Who would have thunk it? Let's do one bit of mail, Will, and get out of here. And if you want to send us a mail, the best way to do that is to go to tofop.com. There is a contact. Actually, not if you're a Joe Rogan fan. I've got a feeling when this episode comes out, we might be
that's
hearing.
fine. I understand what your opinions are. You can keep them to yourself. Yes, Joe Rogan has more podcast downloads than we do. I understand. I know how numbers work.
Well, I clearly don't because Adam Spencer corrects me every bloody week. To see the full video, join our Patreon.
Patreon.com/TOFOP.